Hello, guys. Hearken unto my speech. This is an important topic. This is about marriage and divorce. I am Wisek, and welcome to WISEGURU. Mark 10, verse 9. Meaning and explanation. Verse. Therefore, what God has joined together, let not man separate. Context of Mark 10, verse 9. This verse comes from Mark 10, verses 1 to 12, where the Pharisees test Jesus by asking if divorce is lawful. Jesus responds by pointing to God's original design for marriage, referencing Genesis 2, verse 24, that a man and woman become one flesh. He explains that marriage is not just a human contract, but a divine union established by God. Key points of Mark 10, verse 9. 1. Marriage is God's design. Jesus emphasizes that marriage is not a man-made institution, but a sacred bond created by God. When a man and a woman enter into marriage, God unites them spiritually and physically. 2. Permanence of marriage. The phrase, let not man separate, teaches that marriage is meant to be a lifelong commitment. Divorce was permitted under Mosaic law, Deuteronomy 24, verses 1 to 4, because of human hardness of heart, but it was never God's ideal plan. 3. God's authority over marriage. Since God is the one who joins a couple together, humans, including judges, lawyers, or even the couple themselves, do not have ultimate authority to break it apart. This does not mean separation is never allowed, but it stresses that marriage should not be ended lightly. 4. Love and responsibility in marriage. A marriage should be built on love, respect, and mutual responsibility. Ephesians 5, verses 22 to 33. Couples are encouraged to resolve conflicts with God's guidance rather than seek an easy way out. What if there is a battered wife or husband? If you encounter a situation involving a battered wife, the priority is ensuring her safety. Here's what to do. 1. Ensure immediate safety. If she is in immediate danger, call emergency services, 911, or the local equivalent immediately. Help her find a safe place away from the abuser, such as a shelter, a trusted friend's house, or a secure location. 2. Offer support and encouragement. Let her know she is not alone and that help is available. Listen without judgment and believe her story. Victims often fear they won't be believed. Encourage her to seek professional support from a counselor, social worker, or domestic violence advocate. 3. Guide her to legal and protective measures. Help her report the abuse to authorities if she is willing. She may be eligible for a protection order, restraining order, against the abuser. If children are involved, Child Protective Services may need to be contacted. Does this mean divorce is never allowed? While Jesus upholds the permanence of marriage, Matthew 19, verse 9 clarifies that in cases of adultery, sexual immorality, divorce may be permitted. 1 Corinthians 7, verse 15 also allows separation when an unbelieving spouse abandons the marriage. However, these are exceptions, not the rule. Matthew 19, verse 9. Meaning and detailed explanation. Verse. And I say to you, whoever divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, and marries another, commits adultery. And whoever marries her who is divorced commits adultery. Matthew 19, verse 9. Context of Matthew 19, verse 9. In Matthew 19, verses 1 to 12, the Pharisees test Jesus by asking, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for just any reason? At that time, Jewish men could divorce their wives for almost any trivial reason. Jesus responds by referring to Genesis 2, verse 24, where God originally designed marriage as a permanent union. However, he acknowledges that Moses allowed divorce due to the hardness of people's hearts, Deuteronomy 24, verses 1 to 4. But Jesus reaffirms God's ideal. Marriage is meant to last for life. Breaking down Matthew 19, verse 9. 1. Whoever divorces his wife. Jesus speaks universally. This applies to anyone. Divorce was common in Jewish culture, but Jesus challenges the idea that it is always acceptable. 2. Except for sexual immorality. Greek, porneia. Porneia means sexual sin, fornication, adultery, incest, etc. Jesus permits divorce only if one spouse is unfaithful. This shows that marital unfaithfulness violates the marriage covenant, making divorce a valid option, though not mandatory. 3. And marries another, commits adultery. If someone divorces without biblical grounds, not due to sexual immorality, and remarries, Jesus says they commit adultery because in God's eyes, the first marriage is still valid. This challenges the idea that a legal divorce automatically dissolves a marriage before God. 4. Whoever marries her who is divorced commits adultery. If a woman is wrongly divorced, not due to porneia, anyone who marries her is also committing adultery because her first marriage is still valid before God. What this verse teaches about divorce and remarriage. 1. Divorce is not God's original plan. God's ideal is for marriage to be a lifelong covenant. Genesis 2 verse 24. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And in Malachi 2 verses 15 to 16, it says, And did not he make one? Yet had he the residue of the Spirit. And wherefore one? That he might seek a godly seed. Therefore take heed to your spirit, and let none deal treacherously against the wife of his youth. For the Lord, the God of Israel, saith that he hateth putting away. For one covereth violence with his garment, saith the Lord of hosts. Therefore take heed to your spirit, that ye deal not treacherously. In this verse, guys, the Lord God emphasizes his plan that he might seek a godly seed. Divorce was allowed in the Old Testament because of sin, not because it was God's will. 2. Sexual immorality, adultery, is the only biblical ground for divorce. This does not mean divorce is required. Many couples choose to forgive and restore their marriage after infidelity. But if one partner is unrepentant, divorce is allowed. 3. Remarriage after an unbiblical divorce is considered adultery. However, remarriage after a biblical divorce due to adultery is allowed. How this applies today. For married couples, prioritize commitment and work through difficulties with forgiveness and reconciliation. Divorce should only be considered if the marriage covenant is broken through adultery. For those considering divorce, divorce is not just a legal action, but a spiritual one. Seek wisdom before deciding. If possible, seek counseling, prayer, and reconciliation before taking this step. For those who have divorced and remarried, if someone has remarried after an unbiblical divorce, they should not separate again, but rather seek God's forgiveness and honor their current marriage. God's grace covers all sins, and he can redeem any marriage that is committed to him. Conclusion. Matthew 19 verse 9 highlights that marriage is sacred. Divorce is only permitted in cases of sexual immorality, and remarriage after an unbiblical divorce is adultery. However, Jesus' teaching is not meant to condemn, but to call people back to God's original design for marriage. Thank you for watching, guys. Please hit that like and subscribe button if you like this wisdom video.